All right, we are back with another episode of 90s Noise. I'm April, born 1991.
And I'm Ashley, born 1988. So we just want to thank everyone for listening to our episode. And we want to remind everyone that we do have a Patreon account that you can find a link to either in our show notes for each episode, or you can find the link to it on our Instagram, which is 90s Noise. And we have a great deal for $3 a month. You have access to all of our videos of all of our episodes, all of the exclusive interviews that we do with all of our guests. You also will have access to a couple of fun bonus episodes each month, either related to a past episode or just something random that we decided to do. So we would love it if you would go on and support us and check that out. Also, remember to follow us on Instagram. And of course, leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcast, whatever platform that is. Leave us a review. We would love to hear from you. We really do appreciate all of your support, and we will definitely shout out any reviews that we get.
Don't be afraid. Send us some messages on Instagram. We love talking to people and hearing feedback. And yeah, we would love to hear from you. All right, we are back with Boy Meets World Part 2, Take 2. Why is it Take 2, Ashley?
Well, if someone could tell me that, I would gladly appreciate the explanation of why audio comes out sounding like chipmunks. But that is what happened. And you know what? That sometimes happens when you're dealing with technology.
It's just so frustrating because we were actually together.
We were together. Okay, let's start with that, everyone. We were together. We watched these part 2 episodes together and we recorded together. And now, and even though that was only like a week ago, I will tell you now, I have absolutely no idea what we talked about.
Oh my gosh, girl, like everything. I mean, I just told you like how my weekend was and that. Oh, and I didn't even go into the fact that we like raced back home to go get that tattoo before the end of the day.
Oh my God.
Thankfully, that took like literally 15 minutes once I was in, because it was just lines and everything. It wasn't coloring or shading, but I was like, I had to stop and get something to eat because we didn't even stop anywhere on the way.
Oh,
That is going to be for a different episode, different story, and added lots to come with that, included in that. Okay, so we're going to go back to part 2, which we finished part 1 with episodes in season 4, right?
Yes.
Okay. We now are going into season 5. So season 5, our first episode that we went back and rewatched was season 5, episode 13, The Eskimo.
Oh,
and
yes. The
this
controversial Eskimo episode. Well, at least the title, anyways. Not necessarily the episode itself, but the title. Is it controversial today? I don't know.
And I'm sorry if we are offending anyone, but
Yes.
we are talking 90s here, and in the 90s it was cry me a river, build me a bridge, do us all a favor and get over yourself. Do you remember that saying?
Basically.
Yeah. I mean, that just goes along with like pretty much everything. I'm not saying that it was okay or anything of that sort, but we are talking about 90s and the 90s culture that we grew up in. And so with this episode was January 16th, 1998 was when it came out. So late 90s with that one, but still 90s was a different world. It's kind of crazy. It wasn't that long ago, so it seems, but
so
still
it seems.
crazy. Yeah. So Cliff Notes version on this episode, we're getting down to the wire here with the Boy Meets World main cast in high school. And Mr. Feeney, he had assigned something and Sean just didn't finish it.
Yes.
And so Corey made an excuse for Sean. And
was it that they did an essay together and they were trying to share credit with like, oh, we did
that's
the
what
essay together,
he
right?
claimed.
You're right.
He was like,
Yes.
well, so the reason Sean didn't
Mm-hmm.
get his done was because he was helping me with
Yeah.
mine or something like that.
No.
And then
No.
yeah, and then Topanga butted her nose in and had to say something. And Mr. Feedy finally kind of just was fed up.
I'm surprised it took this long for him to snap because damn.
Yeah. And so he had them stay after class, and he's like, you guys are about to go out and to the real world. Like, you guys can't keep doing this. Sean, you gotta learn to do shit yourself. Corey, stop trying to
make his life easier. Like, make Sean
yeah.
do his own stuff.
And then Topanga just butt the fuck out.
Basically, that's the adult version of what Mr. Feeney would have liked to have said.
Yeah. He gives Sean a new assignment, and Corey's assignment is to help Sean and Topanga succeed. Topanga's is to not butt in. Sean's is to get 2 tickets to the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
If anyone, regular people, have tried to get tickets to the Super Bowl when the Super Bowl's a week and a half away, y'all know that that's practically like a fucking impossible thing to do.
Yeah, because he wanted to get it by the next day too. Like
it wasn't. I think what it was it was the week before, and this was like Friday, and he was like, you have until Monday. So you have, because they did have like a good full day.
True, with them being out there. I wonder how much they cost back then too. Like, was he making Sean use his own money to get these tickets too? Like, was he expecting him to just, because that's also a little bit out. Like, that's I didn't think about that part, but like, wait a second.
I would have nowadays they, I think, run like multi-thousands. Mm-hmm. I'm sure it was the same back then. There's a scene with the radio going, and it's saying, you can win 2 tickets to the Super Bowl. Just be the whatever caller and make sure you dial, all this kind of stuff. And Topanga's like trying to get them to listen. And then finally Corey like realizes what he's hearing. He's like, oh shit.
On his own terms, like, even though Topanga was trying to tell him, he was like, oh, look, listen to this. What, Topanga, why didn't you help us? Didn't you like?
And she's just like, I give up.
Sure, yeah, I wasn't trying to help you at all.
So this is also just like a really weird contest that they ran.
So this is actually really funny that we're talking about this, because something just popped up on Twitter. It's like an old story that happened. It was also kind of a similar thing with a contest that the radio was throwing. And now that I'm thinking about this contest that they were trying to throw for this, where it's basically like sit outside, was it 24 hours that they were making them sit outside in the cold Pennsylvania weather? Is that what it was?
I think it was the last man standing. Like, it didn't matter how long.
Okay, so it wasn't
just
like
a last man standing. No.
So if you think about that concept, like, one, you're having like kids that are underage. Like, where's the parental consent? But that's the thing. These radio contests, the one that I read about today, like, somebody actually died from this contest that was being held. So that's kind of scary that this was.
Well, that's why they always have you sign a liability form.
Yeah, but no. And no.
Who truly reads those? I mean, if you
we've
really
already talked about that. No.
You wouldn't be signing it. But like, when you're talking underage, not necessarily, because if you're a senior in high school, just depending on when you
could be 17 or 18.
It would just really depend on that. Anyway, so he doesn't win this contest because he is literally going up against somebody from what is it? Actually, Alaska, is that what he said? Like Juneau or something, or Anchorage?
I don't remember them saying anything, but that would probably be correct.
Somewhere way north.
Way north, who is accustomed to the freezing cold temperatures, and
who goes to Pennsylvania in January for summer break.
Right. Pretty much. Yeah.
Let's put it that way. And like he's sitting there eating ice cream and just like
Oh, he's
chilling
so
and stuff.
cute. He's having a great time.
Absolutely.
He wanted to go to his
And
first Super Bowl.
yeah, he wanted to go too. They're thinking like Mr. Feeney was just trying to give him a lesson and all this kind of stuff when they get back to him. And Mr. Feeney just has this disappointed parental sense about him.
He was mad. He looked mad. He looked like he was ready to break down. Like, where are my tickets?
Yeah.
Like, where
Yeah.
are my tickets? And we talked about this. Like, what do you think was the underlying tone of that? And like, what did he really, really want those tickets for a specific reason?
Yeah. And so that's what I had told you. This episode was one that really stuck out to me. And I always thought that they were then going to like announce that he was sick because of just how it was almost like a dying wish type of thing. But he was trying not to be too open about it, I guess. Like, trying to keep a low profile. That's what I felt this
That's what it
episode kind of
seemed
was
like.
leading
Honestly, I was
towards.
waiting for the other shoe to fall. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of where I felt like the episode was going, but then it never really happened. Then it didn't really seem like he cared if he went to the Super Bowl or not. So we were kind of like, wait, so
Yeah, Feeney was pretty upset, and everybody was like, "Oh, well, but it wasn't about the getting the tickets and all this kind of stuff." Then it kind of threw Sean into this. Well, you know what? Fuck this. I'm gonna get there. Like I'll figure out a way. Corey obviously is like, don't know. Like,
yeah, don't worry about it. Yeah, not that big a deal. Yeah,
yeah, and then everybody learns their true lesson.
The true lesson
Was that, especially for Sean and Corey, the most was Corey needed to let Sean do things on his own, and Sean needed to be able to.
Which, you know, I feel like that's been a constant theme throughout the whole show is Corey always, you know, he's always been a great friend. He's always there trying to pick him up when he's down and support him in these certain situations and stuff. But there have been past episodes, like even one that we watched in part 1, where Sean, you know, he wrote Mr. Weenie on his door and got into all this trouble, and Mr. Feeney was trying to have Corey tell him like, hey, who did it, you know. And Sean actually stepped up and did admit to being the one that did it, you know. So it's weird that after all these years now in their senior year that Corey still hasn't learned that Sean is capable of standing his own ground and can do his own thing. He still feels like, oh, I gotta help him. Like if I was Sean, I'd be like, let me be my own person, you know. You're almost like a puppy dog following me around acting like I can't do anything.
Yeah,
I don't know, it's kind of a bit weird.
Yeah, no, I agree. Well, at the end, very, very end, this season they did the beginning of the credit scenes. Or this was like the last season that they did that because they
what, the end credit scene thing?
Yeah. They did the end credit scene where they're watching the Super Bowl and lo and behold, like it's panning the fans and they see that sign. Anything's possible, Mr. Feeney.
And you wonder how he got there. Like, did he scalp tickets? Did he sneak in? Like, I mean, it's Sean, so we don't really know.
That was my episode.
That was
for
a good
season
episode,
5.
though. I did like that. I did like the continuous usage of Mr. Feeney teaching them lessons throughout.
Yeah.
And not just giving up on them. Because, I mean, I almost feel like sometimes you would have with just how helpless they seem to be at times. And it's like, okay, why are you still acting this way when you've been here for how many years now with Mr. Feeney and he still feels like he has to teach you lessons? Like, why aren't your parents doing it?
Yeah. No, I understand that. That is one thing that's always interesting. But I just like this episode. Like I said, it always was something that stuck out in my mind. Because I mean, a lot of people do have there is kind of that group of friends where there's always the troublemaker, the one that's covering, and then the one that like has to stick their nose in everything. So you can kind of see that in a lot of people. So that was my episode. And then yours was the end of the season, right? This was graduation.
Graduation. Yeah, this episode was, I don't know, I really liked this episode because of just the fact that they brought in Minkus at the end where we, he basically disappeared halfway through. I don't even remember which season he stopped appearing in. And so then he made his little
on the other side of the school.
Yeah, he's over there on the other side where no one goes.
With Mr. Turner.
With Mr. Turner. Yeah. So we kind of get a little bit of that inclusion. It's like, oh, okay, so everyone still is there. They didn't just disappear, but they like just don't hang out anymore. They don't ever interact, which was a little bit weird. But again, high schools can be really large and to the point where you don't necessarily go to all the different areas. Like if you're not in certain classes or whatever, you're not necessarily going to be on that side of the school for any particular reason. So that it does make sense that would, even though it was kind of, you're kind of like, wait a second, you've never seen him this whole time, but you're like, okay, actually, no, I think that would be a real thing if you were in a pretty large school. You know.
Yeah, definitely. It's, I mean, not even just a large school, but even a small school, because depending on how they have their classrooms split up, you could have like a separate wing for like music or art. And if you're not doing those as electives or anything, you'd never venture.
Right.
Or if there's like a separate wing for people who are in advanced classes, which we know
Minkus is probably
Minkus probably is, but then it's also like, well, why wouldn't Topanga be there too?
Well, I feel like it was really just between Corey and Sean. I don't think Topanga was in that hallway when Minkus was there, so she could have been in that same
her in whenever there's a class with Corey and Sean, we always see Topanga too.
Yeah, but that's only like 2 classes out of 8 that you're normally in high school. So, I mean, which then again, what we talked about in our back to school episode, what are the odds that they're always in the same fucking class together when like that never happened? Like you were, and I know in a school like that, knowing that Sean and Corey were such close friends, they would have tried to split them up if they could have. So it's just kind of strange that they were always in the same class all those years.
They would have put them in different hours, like your first hour's social studies, your 6 hours social studies.
You know, that's kind of weird that they didn't do that. I would have preferred a season where there was one grade that they weren't together to see how they survived, because
but that just probably would have been,
I know, it wouldn't have worked.
It wouldn't have worked for the show, just real life.
No, but we know that would not have ever happened in real life, because
but
yeah, this episode was the one that really made that switch go off in my head about how I viewed Mr. Feeney differently, and how he he came to light in just the way that he was with them, and just that last day of school before graduation, and still he's wanting to teach them something. He's still wanting them to learn from their time there and what else they can learn from it type situation. And I really liked that. I liked that they kept that consistent throughout the whole show.
I did too. And that's, I think, part of one of the reasons why this show also stands the test of time for the most part, with the occasional, like, not, I don't even know what you want to call it. Like, there are occasional episodes with like Eskimo where it doesn't work now, like certain titles or a small theme or small comment, but for the majority, and I think a part of that was a big part of that was because of Mr. Feeney. What do you think of Topanga giving Sean the speech?
That was really sweet. But honestly, that was unexpected, because there was that whole exchange between her and Minkus about, who made the most A's and who's going to be valedictorian and the speech and this and that. So I wasn't expecting it to go that way, where she was just going to be like, you know what, Sean, come up here. I know you have something really important to say. It's your turn to shine. It's not about me. And I liked that that part for her character, that she was able to do that, because I know how important that speech probably was and having that recognition. So for her to allow him to do that was super sweet. Like, it really was.
Absolutely. Still would have loved to have heard her speech. But
well, yeah, and that's the thing. Like, why didn't they include like a little end credit scene of her practicing it or something, to where we could have kind of seen that side of her a little bit, that what she would have wanted to say. I think that would have been cool, that if they would have had that in. I wonder if there ever was like actually a speech written, or if it was just never, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But even just the whole, which we have spoken about how we really love her character, and how she really was a very independent woman and basically wears the pants in the relationship. But for that, which is like the big thing of this episode, is she is the one that proposes to Corey. Like, that was a big like, whoa, she did what now? You still is.
Yeah, like we actually were talking about this. There's some like upheaval or whatever about females being the ones to propose to males, and like, oh my gosh, all this kind of stuff. But this episode, I think, that might have also been pretty controversial at the time. I mean, it still is.
Oh, I'm sure.
That.
Yeah. Yeah. It's still kind of not even with the changes and stuff. I still think it's not that commonplace for women to propose. You know what I mean? I still think it's kind of a little bit like, wait, you had to propose? Like, are you sure like this is a good relationship? Like, why didn't he propose? You know what I mean? Like, I still think it's even a little bit taboo for women to do that, which it's fucking crazy.
I find it interesting that it's still taboo, but I guess I see it both ways and everything.
Yeah.
And that's maybe probably just the old soul in me still. The interesting thing about this too was the season finale.
Mm-hmm.
And so it wasn't like next week.
Yeah.
It wasn't like next week you could just.
Yeah.
So
what did they
decide? He say yes?
Mm-hmm.
Because he didn't answer.
Yeah.
They left it open. And
Oh, I hated when shows did that. Oh my
gosh.
God.
Do you remember when they actually did though? And then you did have to wait for a full season a summer, whatever
I remember.
It was.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember watching shows like that all the time. That was, you couldn't binge watch. You had no idea what was happening. You had to wait 6+ months.
But now I don't feel like season finales are that.
They very rarely land on a cliffhanger because there's so much uncertainty. There's so much uncertainty.
They don't know until pretty close to, like, they just don't know.
Yeah.
On whether they're coming back for another season or not anymore. And I don't know necessarily who's to blame on that.
Well, that's the thing with the network streaming services now, like, Netflix and Hulu, they get that say of, okay, this show's not going to continue anymore, but they always make that decision after they've already finished shooting that season. Yeah. So they have no way of going back in and fixing anything. Like, that, oh my gosh, must piss you off so much.
Is the worst. It's almost one of those things where I like that because it just leaves you wanting more. But like, I hated it because I hated having to wait.
Yeah.
Before streaming services came along.
Right. And then you're waiting forever because the show gets canceled and now you have absolutely no idea where it could have went. Yeah. Like, that is the absolute worst. So it is nice when shows have the opportunity to give us a actual finale. Like Boy Meets World was able to give us an actual finale that the fans could appreciate and know that, okay, this is the end. We have closure. We can move on. Yeah, that was very interesting. And there was a lot of other things that happened in season 5. Like, one, we had some introductions of different characters that we're going to continue on and into the final 2 seasons. Like Angela, she was introduced as their new friend type thing. We had the whole Lauren storyline, which really fucked everything up and just made you go like, are you kidding me, Corey? I want to come over there and slap you right now. Like, that episode, I remember so much, that whole storyline where they go on the trip and he does that little thing with Lauren and I'm like, they're really doing this right now with him and
Oh
Topanga.
yeah.
They're really going there. Oh, I think it pissed everybody off.
Oh yeah. I think it did. Absolutely. It's just crazy thinking that that's Linda Cardinelli
I know. I completely forgot. Like,
from so much. I mean,
she's
from
done
she the
everything.
Clue or Legally Blonde, not Clueless, Legally Blonde,
Freaks and Geeks.
Velma in the live action
Hmm.
Scoobies,
Yeah,
and
she's awesome. She's done
in
so many cool
Marvel,
things. Hmm. Yeah,
and it's just so crazy to think, like, to see that and everything.
yeah,
It's like, oh my gosh. But yeah, no, the whole Lauren storyline was definitely interesting. And
very.
I think it was their attempt to see kind of where a storyline
Hmm.
could go outside of the Corey Topanga. And it just I feel like they even knew before like it aired that this just wasn't gonna work.
Right.
Yeah, season 5 was definitely a crazy one, that's for sure.
Hmm. Yeah. And I feel like they could do more, being that they were seniors, getting into getting ready for college type thing.
Hmm.
So it allowed them to kind of test the waters on a lot more topics and stuff to where they could see, should we try to do that? But
Hmm.
thankfully they did not.
Yeah, thankfully.
But funnily enough, that whole incident carries over into the end of season 6, basically, which is the episode that I picked. What was it, the psychotic episode?
Yeah, so that was was that
That was
the
towards the end.
that was towards the end because that was I
Yes,
think like one or two before mine.
mm-hmm. And he's still kind of having those doubts. I mean, obviously they agreed upon, like, we're going to get married, la la la. So they're like getting all that type of stuff get together, and that's sitting on him and having basically cold feet in a sense. But his past is kind of still sitting with him, and it's coming back up. So he's having these crazy dreams where he's killing Sean, mainly killing Sean, but he
Over
doesn't
and
actually,
over
yeah.
and
But
over again.
like Mr. Feeney said, he's not completing the dream, so he never really fully sees where it's going. And then, like, we see, okay, now he's killing Eric, and now he's killing Angela, and then Lauren comes in, and now, like, it's so there's all these feelings still sitting there that he's just
Hmm.
feeling that.
And I didn't ask you this when we did this the first time. Have you ever had a dream like that? Not necessarily like where you're killing somebody, but like where it's continuing, like you're having it every night or once a week, and you feel that you wake up and you almost don't want to go back to sleep because of it.
No, not that I can ever recall. And I've heard these same type of storylines in other shows or movies where people they have that same type of dream, blah, 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 blah. Whether it's like they want to go back to sleep or they don't. I don't feel like I've ever experienced that before. I've never had a dream where it's made me repeat it again at a later time. Like,
Hmm.
I've had some like weird dreams where it's like, okay, do I like want to continue something with that? Like, where was
Hmm.
that going? Am I glad that I woke up at that time? But thankfully, I've never had a repetitive type dream. Have
Yeah.
you?
Not that I can really remember. I think there's a few dreams that I've had like two or three times, but not to the
Mm.
point of it's so stuck with me or anything.
Hmm.
But it's always interesting. I don't always remember mine. And
Yeah, no, 95% no.
it is always interesting having when I do have one that jolts me
Hmm.
out of sleep to that extent, which thankfully doesn't happen very often.
No.
It's crazy.
Hmm.
Dreams can just be crazy.
Oh, they definitely are. I couldn't imagine living with that, what Corey was going through. Like, it would keep you up if you had something
Mhm.
like that was so disturbing, and you're like, why my best friend of all people, why are they dying? Like, what really is going on? Like,
Mhm.
that would be scary. But what is kind of nice about it is that he turned to Mr. Feeney. Like, they brought, you
Mhm.
know what I mean? That they brought him
Oh yeah.
in as, like, he's basically like his therapist now. So you
Oh
can
yeah.
see.
Well, let's be honest. He is the therapist. That's for damn sure. He is definitely the
Oh,
therapist on
a
that.
voice of reason. Oh, I love that.
For
It's like,
sure.
just finish the fucking dream, Corey. Like, see where it's going. Like, what's going to happen? It's a dream,
Mm-hmm. Oh man, definitely an interesting one to say the least.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't remember that one, honestly.
I didn't
From
really either. I just, like I had said, I liked the continuation of Lauren and how it kind of brought that back because, like I said, Lauren was such a big part of, I feel, the second half of the show and kind of where Corey and Topanga were going and him
mm-hmm.
lying to her about it and stuff. And so he did have those regretful feelings and stuff that I'm sure
Yeah.
stayed with him for a while. And, like we talked about the first time, have you ever had, I shouldn't say have you, but like, did you have cold feet when you were going into marriage?
Not really. I really didn't. That's the thing. Like, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like in a sense it is a little bit more the male side that usually does, just because I mean, as a female, a lot of females like dream about their wedding day
Mm-hmm.
from they can remember. And so it's very, oh my gosh, I'm finally getting this day. Whereas as a male perspective, I think that they feel like they're giving up more in that sense. I mean, marriage is coming together. That's where my mindset's always been on it. But no, I didn't. Not, I know it is a very real thing for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Oh no, I just knew he was the one. So
Aww.
I think mine was actually the next episode,
Mm-hmm.
or like I said, maybe an episode later. State of the Unions was I think maybe the season finale for that one.
That was the finale of that.
So Corey was pretty stressed out because the in-laws were coming, because it was getting ready to start like getting the wedding planned and everything. And Topanga's super stoked. Like she's just going on and on about how she knows that her and Corey are gonna be great together because she just looks at her parents and sees how happy they are.
Right
And
away, like, oh,
you're
something's
just
gonna
like,
happen. Did
all
you?
right, where's this other shoe? Sure enough, there's like immediate tension when they get
Mm.
there. And it's like just like you could cut the air with a knife.
Yeah, that episode was tense. Like
It,
and I'm trying to think if I ever recall seeing that episode because I don't feel like I did. I don't know. It just
mhm,
that was a very almost two-part episode where I really did enjoy how they did that setup of the tension between her parents and kind of this breakup. They're, on the brink of getting a divorce. And then you have Mr. Feeney coming in with his love of his life, and they're getting married. Like they're starting this whole life together. And I liked how
mhm,
they did that separation of the episode of like, okay, shit's going down on this end, but there's a whole love story going down over
mhm.
here.
Yeah, it definitely was different for me watching it because I went through kind of the same thing
Mm-hmm.
right before I got married. My parents had separated. To me, I already knew that like I was going into my marriage, and I wasn't comparing it to anybody else's.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't as like, oh my gosh.
Right,
I
your
mean,
world didn't crumble like it seemed
it,
hers did.
yeah. And while it sucked,
Mm-hmm.
the fact that that was happening, it's something, since it did happen when I was older, I could see it as more, I guess, a logical standpoint, I get in a sense. I don't know if that's even
Mm.
a way to put it. I mean, it's something that happens to people,
Yeah.
and it sucks,
Mm.
but it's also one of those things where you have to understand that if that's not your relationship, it shouldn't affect you in that way. And of course, obviously, like when stuff like that happens to people when they're younger, it definitely does. And yes, it did affect me, but not to where the extent that it did to Panga. Because again, like I said, I wasn't basing my relationship, which was completely different than my parents, on my parents' success.
Yeah, and I think what was with Topanga is that she sort of created this whole love story so early on. Like
Mm-hmm.
her and Corey got together super young, and she kind of had this vision, I feel like, in her head from a very, very young age. And so when
Mm-hmm.
you hold on to that vision of your parents, or even if it's not your parents, it's somebody else's relationship. I mean, we have seen in real life different celebrities that, okay, we don't really know them, and it's kind of
Yeah.
a weird, but different celebrities that you feel like, wow, like they have a long, strong relationship is what we feel like from the outside, and now they're getting divorced. If you're looking at someone and basing your relationship on that, that's definitely not a good way to go into your own relationship. You know what I mean? Because there's
Yeah.
bound to be some issues that you aren't going to be seeing because you're not in that relationship. Like, I'm sure her parents had all these issues behind closed doors that she wasn't aware of, but they're only going to be putting on this front with her
Yeah.
because they're her daughter and stuff. And so they don't want to have her see what's really going on. So I'm sure it was stuff building up, that it didn't just happen overnight. And
Mm-hmm.
unfortunately for her, though, it happened when they were getting ready to be married. And that
Yeah.
just, I feel like if it wasn't around that time, it probably wouldn't have affected her quite as much. But I think it being that time in her life, it really hit her even harder, and she kind of like took it really personally, and I think she had a moment of doubt, right? Like she was kind of like, are we gonna work out? Like, are me and Corey, you know what I mean? Didn't she have like a little
Not
second?
not something where she like said anything, I don't think. Topanga really put more stock into her parents' relationship than what she really, I don't know, for me, I kind of felt like it was, hey, why put more stock in your own relationship as opposed to your parents? Because
Yeah,
they're
I
not
mean,
gonna you're not gonna necessarily face the same trials and tribulations that they do.
different generations, so yeah, definitely you're gonna have
Mm-hmm.
different life experiences. I mean, plus her and Corey being together for as long as they kind of knew each other. They knew
Yeah.
they've been through so many ups and downs already. So yeah, it was a little bit weird. And like, I get both parts, but it was a little bit weird that she got as distraught as she did with it. But I can understand where she's coming from. Absolutely. I mean, I feel like it's a common thing. And I did like how and I feel like we mentioned this before, I did like how the show brought in so many different type of aspects of family type
Yeah.
relationships with the divorced parents and those that were still together and all of that.
Yeah. And also in this episode, finding love later in life
Mm-hmm.
with Mr. Feeney. I mean, I don't remember his backstory per se to remember if he had
Right.
a wife previously. It's been so long since I've watched
Yeah.
the entire series. I don't remember if there was any prior prior comments about a previous wife, but he's later in life, what people would call past his prime, and he's found the love of his life.
Mm-hmm.
And so you really can look at this show and there's something for everybody.
Yeah. I think though the one thing that I didn't like with where this show ended up going in this second half of this series is when they introduced the newborn, like this new kid into the Corey's
Yeah.
household. I'm like, why was that necessary? Did it give any of the characters anything more to add? No, it absolutely did not. I think it was just a ridiculous plot point to bring into it. Like it just made no sense. And it frustrates me when all the shows of the 90s I felt like did that.
Yeah, they did. And it was kind of almost like they were trying to go ahead and kickstart a new generation to keep it going, but they wouldn't do it until like the very last season
Right.
or the next to last season. And you're like, I get that you may not know how far this is going to go,
Mm-hmm.
but if you can't continue, I don't like the switching, the trying to add in a whole new slew of characters so late in the game. to almost kickstart a completely different show in a sense.
Right. Yeah. And it seemed almost unrealistic for the parents. Like the mom had to have been in her 40s by that point. Like it just didn't seem plausible that that they were bringing in a newborn when they had kids that were now in college. It was like, but why? Like, why do you need a newborn kid? You have 2 kids off to college now, and now you're
and you still
starting
have
all
a
over.
daughter.
And you still have a daughter. It's
Yeah.
like
that's where it's kind
and
of.
And weren't they already talking about in earlier seasons how they were poor? They didn't really have money to send their kids to school. Like, let's have a 4th kid.
Yeah. So it's one of those things where even being married, still be smart, proactive, protection in whatever way, shape, or form. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, there's just, that could be an entire full podcast in and of itself. But all right, let's get on to our final 3 episodes for this, and this is season 7, final season. And so we will start with yours, which was the baby back ribs.
She's having baby back ribs.
Baby back ribs.
She's having my baby back ribs.
Yeah.
That's funny episode title. This was a good episode. I felt like it was very lighthearted. Of course, it was one of those where it went in a complete different direction than it should have. One of those assuming something is happening when really this is happening. But I felt like it was kind of comparable to the one that we watched in the earlier seasons, where it was about body image and that self-consciousness that we have as we go through certain stages of our life. And I like how they again used Topanga to kind of portray that she was feeling this particular way about her body and where she was in life, and she was looking at those around her, and she saw different things and stuff. And everyone goes through that. Like, everyone feels certain ways and about themselves, no matter what somebody else tells you. You know, like you have to feel it, and you have to believe it, no matter what other people perceive you as. So I did like how they made this kind of a funny episode, where it was really just supposed to be about her and Eric going on a diet, and we want to lose some weight, and and then it just took a complete 180, and now she's pregnant. Like, all of a sudden, like, she
pregnant.
Whoops.
Just because a female's got a little bit of a pooch does not mean she's pregnant.
Don't ever assume that.
Don't ever. Even if it looks like she's got a basketball under there. And like, I mean, because some women's bodies with when they are pregnant, they're at a certain point in their pregnancy, you can tell that it is pregnant and it's not fat. Even when you see it and you're like, oh, that's got to be pregnancy. You don't ever assume.
Don't just go up and say that.
Don't. Unless you want somebody who's probably super sweet, super nice to go full blown, 100% fucking bitch Karen on you and show you some hormones, even if they're not pregnant.
Oh, yikes.
So just a little tip for anybody. I'm not just saying guys. I'm saying women too. Like, women don't need to be assuming if you don't know, you don't know.
And just because people are married or in some sort of long-term relationship, there's still no reason to be asking or assuming that there's a baby present. Like, why is that important? Mind your own business.
Why? I've got a baby. She's got 4 paws, a tail, and meows. I didn't birth her, but she wakes me up like a freaking newborn.
Right?
Yeah, no, this one was a good one. I enjoyed it. And then just I enjoyed at the end where like she's like, well, Eric, you called me fat. And I was like, what are you talking about? I just called you fat because I wanted your piece of pizza. Hey, fatso, give me that.
Oh, I love that. Yeah, like, exactly. And it's like one comment, it just turns in this whole thing. It catapults into something else. But I am still a little surprised that Corey went the way that he did. Like he went full blown pregnancy, like, oh, I'm gonna be a dad, like, let's throw a baby shower. Like, what the fuck?
So like, yes, Sean may have been the one to initially assume and everything, but he also was like, Corey, okay, ask her, tell her you know about the baby and everything. And then Corey's like, no, 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 no. The one thing I don't remember if we talked about this on part one. I know we did talk about it a little bit when we were together first recording this. I didn't like how they made Corey so so very,
they dumbed him down again.
they dumbed him down, but they also like made him extremely impulsive. Almost like thinking about it, it almost is very, very much like he kind of reminds me a little bit of Tigger from Pooh.
Yeah, I could see that.
I don't know. I didn't necessarily care for that part of his character. Sean actually did talk to your wife before you go do something crazy, and he just completely ignores him.
Yeah, it made for a fun episode, but yeah, it really was stupid that they had Corey do that, because it's like, come on, like you really want to have taken Topanga aside and been like, so are we having a baby? Like, are we ready for this? Like, is this what we want? Is this what you want? He didn't even have that conversation with her. He just assumed like, baby, we're having it, we're popping it out. Like, but maybe she didn't want that, you know?
Yeah,
that was a little strange for them. But it did kind of allow us to see, it did kind of shine a little bit of light on like the other characters and that they brought in, like Rachel and Jack and stuff, which I felt were interesting characters for them to have on the show, but I wouldn't say that they were my favorite. You know what I mean? Like, did you like their inclusion? I know you liked Matt as an actor and that type of stuff, but did you like him in this role as Jack?
Yes and no. I feel like the first little bit where the first season with him, which I think was 5 or 6, he was a little bit more just normal, kind of preppy boy type deal. But this season, I feel like he was a lot more like, I'm Mr. Cool and I got this tall girlfriend, all this kind of thing, that it just, I don't know. I guess in a sense, and what I'm saying is I didn't care a whole hell of a lot for the direction that they took a lot of the characters in the final season, especially. I just feel like it was, they were doing like 180s for most of them.
Yeah.
And I don't know if they were trying it as like a last ditch effort to, if they were kind of in the air for whether they were going to continue past 7 when they started filming and writing for 7 or what. But some of the characters, they kind of had been projecting them towards this, like Corey's character had the last season and a half, he kind of, or no, actually, once they got married, that's actually, I think, when they really made him more
immature again.
Yeah.
It's
and
weird.
It's very weird because you'd think, okay, married, why not have him mature more? So I don't know. That's my little tangent on that. I
almost feel like Sean ended the season being the most mature and well-functioning character out of all of them, surprisingly.
Yeah, agreed, for sure. Which brings us into the final 2 episodes of the series.
No.
Brave New World Part 1 and 2. We talked about this in our Part 2 take 1 that didn't work when we were together, but these 2 episodes definitely were pulling at the heartstrings. However, they kind of overdid it with the flashbacks.
Oh my god, fucking flashbacks, I swear. Oh, I mean, it was like a good and a bad thing too, because it was nice when you didn't go back and rewatch all the episodes, you kind of got a glimpse at some things and some stories that you forgot about and all that. But that would have been great for a normal 20-minute episode. But the fact that they carried it on for a 2-parter and it just kept going and going, you're like,
yeah.
So what's this episode about?
Yeah, that I do truly think that they wanted to give the fans an hour-long send-off, and instead of filling it with full, like, just completely new material type of thing, they needed to add in those flashbacks. I mean, because it was pretty much the actual new material was about just a single episode long.
Yeah.
Or we weren't thinking about this before. What might have happened is that they were told they originally just planned for it to be a single episode send off, and then maybe later on it was, oh no, right before the episode was going to air or something, they're like, oh wait, no, we're giving you an hour time slot, you need to fill it.
Maybe because I feel like some of those flashbacks didn't make sense in some parts. And they were repetitive a little bit, and you're like, okay, like what?
So that might have been what it could have been, because that makes sense. Because if, like I said, if you take out all those flashbacks, it's a single episode.
Yeah.
So that's probably what it was. It was I don't know. I'm just speculating because I didn't do research do a deep dive onto this. But my speculation is that they had filmed it as just the final episode, doing a final half hour, done, over, that's a wrap. And then they came in and said that they needed to fill an hour time slot because of the fact that they did the whole previously on.
Yeah, which I hated that because I'm like, okay, we just watched that.
That was like 3 minutes of flashback, just pure flashback.
Honestly, yeah. Ugh.
The final scene of the show is one that gets me every damn fucking time.
Yeah. I did like how they all went back to the school and they all sat down in their desks, and they wanted that last little bit with Mr. Feeney. Like that was such a sweet little send off that they did that full circle thing.
I didn't realize, in all the times with the exception of this last rewatch, where right before they go, Corey asks Eric, did you call him? And he says, yes, he'll be there.
Right, because otherwise you're like, okay, well, how do they all know to just meet up at the exact same time? Yeah,
exactly. I fucking love that scene. Like I like, even right now, just thinking about it and talking about it, like, to find words that truly describe how it makes you feel, like, is hard.
Yeah, because I know when we were watching it together, we were both trying to not
so
cry.
Hard.
We were like, we're not crying. We are not crying.
We're gonna be strong in front of each other. We're not gonna cry. Whereas when I watched it before, I was like, like, I was literally done so and everything before. Yeah, because it's sad, and I really want to know if that final goodbye with each of them, what was it planned, how they reacted, or was it scripted?
Yeah,
because honestly, if it was scripted, damn good fucking acting, because it felt so genuine.
I feel like even if it was scripted, you almost have to be genuine in those situations because they know that this is it. Like, this is their last, and they've spent 7+ years together, and this is their send off. This is their goodbye.
But you know what I'm curious on, and I don't know the whole backstory with Boy Meets World, if it would have been filmed sequentially. Was it like a live action or like live audience, like Full House?
I almost feel like how they had the scene set up, it could have been, just because it wasn't, I mean, like, they were very one-directional,
one-sided. Yeah. maybe it was like, because it's just sometimes hard to tell if it's truly a laugh track, if it's which.
Did they have laugh tracks on that show though? I don't think they did. I don't feel like I remember any. Was there? Now I can't remember.
I
Now I'm
know
like, wait,
it's
what
like
the?
that Mandela
Hmm.
effect or whatever.
Like, shit.
I know that for the reboot or the continuation, it was before a live audience. So maybe this one
Mm.
was, and that's why. And so it was actually
I feel
truly
like
like
most of
filmed
those
in sequential.
sitcoms were in front of a live audience back in the 90s. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just feel
Why
like,
don't they do that anymore?
I know. I just, I feel like it gives it a different,
Feeling.
yeah, instead of that fakeness that they include in afterwards.
I don't even like even the ones that do still put in laugh tracks, like, okay, like How I Met Your Mother or How I Met Your Father. Those I don't believe are filmed in front of live audience.
I think they are though, aren't they?
Are they? Are they still doing that
I know
after
that there was,
COVID?
oh, well, after COVID, yeah, I don't know.
And I know like all the talent shows and stuff do, like Idol, X Factor,
Mm-hmm.
America's Got Talent, those
Right.
all have, but I don't know if they still do a whole lot for with the sitcoms anymore. And I mean, I know that they still do most of them kind of one-sided, but I just don't know if it's just for the atmospheric sake
Right. It's
or if it's
easier to shoot and
because,
stuff.
yeah, cheaper to shoot. You're only
One set.
really,
Yeah.
yeah,
Hmm.
that'll be interesting to check on. Assuming we're going to go on the assumption that this probably was in front of a live studio audience. We're just going on that assumption, whether we're right or wrong, whatever. But to be in the audience during that scene, I
Mm.
wonder if they had to do multiple takes with it, or if that's why they just kept, or if that's why it feels so genuine because they
It was
just
one and
one and done,
hmm.
and they just let the emotions flow.
Well, whatever they did, I mean, it worked because it felt like it happened spontaneously, and it was like, wow,
Yeah,
these kids are really leaving Mr. Feeney. They're going on with their lives. They're all moving to New York, and that's it. That's it for them.
it still makes me sad.
Oh. I do like, not that I haven't watched it, but it is cool that they took this show that seemed to have such a huge impact on so many people, and they were able to, they didn't bring it back, like they didn't bring Boy Meets World back, but they did it in a different way, and it was Girl
Mm-hmm.
Meets World.
Yeah,
And I know you watched it. So what
yeah.
is your opinion and viewpoint on how they brought it back and how they utilize the characters and stuff again?
While I enjoyed it for the most part, it's now like taking place, if I believe, in New York City because
Mm-hmm.
they're still in New York and everything. And instead of it Boy Meets World, it's girls. Like the Corey character is Corey's daughter. There's a Sean character that's her best friend, played by Sabrina Carpenter. I feel like they recycled too many
Mm.
storylines from having a series that had 7 seasons. That's not hard to do because they went through so many storylines. But they did add the kind of a little love triangle between the Corey character. I wouldn't just I don't even remember what their characters' names were. I remember Sabrina's for some reason. It was Maya, which was the Sean character,
Mm-hmm.
and then the Corey character, and then there was a boy. So there was a little
Mm.
love triangle with the three of them.
Oh yeah, because I had questioned as to like why they never tried that. Because you know how they love to do
Mhm.
that
Oh
in
yeah.
shows is test the waters of okay, let's put them two together. Now let's try them two together.
Hmm.
And I appreciate the fact that they didn't though, because
Yeah.
it wouldn't have worked. And I just feel like it wasn't necessary.
With the Girl Meets World, it has been a while since I've watched it. If I remember correctly, the boy, it's a new kid. Yeah, it's a new kid from like the Midwest or something. And so it's new blood in a sense. And I think that's why they were able to, how they did the whole triangle thing, because it was like, oh, it's this new
Mm-hmm.
person in school. Whereas for the original, the three of them had been together, like in a sense, all together since they were super young, Corey, Topanga, and Sean.
Because so if we take it in the perspective of Corey and Sean, was there ever a girl that they fought over at all? I don't recall them ever.
I don't remember, honestly. There might have been when they first started dating.
Yeah.
I know in one of those little flashback scenes it had where they were secretly meeting in the library and everything because Sean's girlfriend had him on a leash and everything and stuff, and they were meeting in the stacks and Corey's like, we knew this day would come and everything. And they had that little flashback scene, but otherwise I really don't think they
Yeah,
did
I don't think they
have them
did.
share any love interest.
I feel like they did it more with Eric.
Yeah.
Eric was always getting into some triangle with somebody.
Yeah. Final line in this show.
Oh.
Class dismissed. Just the way he said it too, because it was right after he said, I do love you all.
Yeah, after they were gone. Mm-hmm.
And then he says that, and then he just pauses for a second and just goes, class dismissed. And you're right now, I'm even starting to cheer up right now.
So sweet. That was such a great show.
That was. There wouldn't have been a dry eye in that live audience if it did happen. I'm sure they probably had tissue boxes under everybody's seats and everything.
Oh.
They're you're gonna cry.
That would have been one great thing to have been able to do, is to go to a taping of one of the shows. Any of the shows.
Yeah. I would fucking love that. Damn Midwest living.
I know.
You had a little bit of
I would have had the advantage.
Easier time because down here in Florida, especially in Orlando,
with the Nickelodeon studio, I could have.
Yeah.
I'm sad that I never did.
Yeah. Granted, you could have, if it had continued, also Mickey Mouse Club. Because that was filmed in Orlando too.
Yeah.
Which the whole reason that all of that was done in Florida was because of the lax child labor laws down here. Yeah. Which they since have changed. I remember when they were casting for, I think it was the new All That, the one that Jamie Lynn was in. I remember come to Orlando and all this kind of stuff to audition, or they were doing a tour to pull people to throughout the country, auditioning in different areas, but then it would be a final audition or something in Orlando, because I looked it up because I was I want to do everybody, a million other kids. Not that I was a comedian or anything of that sort, but I think the closest audition was, I think, Chicago or something, which was 9 hours away. And my parents are no.
Oh my God, no. Yeah.
Good show. Definitely recommend a rewatch, especially if you haven't watched it as an adult. Granted, yes, the first couple seasons are a little hard with it being more young kid based.
Right.
And you really feel more towards the adults in that sense. Otherwise, definitely.
Yeah, highly recommend. Very good show.
Absolutely.
Episode dismissed.
Yeah, exactly. I was about to say, in the words of Mr. Feeney, class dismissed.